Livable Roadways committee meeting to order. Let's have roll call, please.
Councilman Citro,
I am here.
Cal Hardy, Cal, I see you online. You should have the ability to unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm here online.
Thank you. Yanika Mills,
Here.
Kevin O'Hare,
Here.
David Hay,
Here.
Emily Hinsdale,
Here.
Danielle Riffenberg,
Here.
Larry Josephson,
Here.
and I believe Anna Grunman is also here.
Here. Yeah.
Thank you. Rebecca Hessinger,
Here.
Karen Kress,
Here.
Jesus Peraza Garcia,
Here.
and I believe that Omar Alvarado is also online. Jason Jackman,
Here virtually.
Anna Quinones, Glormar Belangia,
Here.
Carlos Ramirez, Una Johnson, Catherine Coyle,
Present.
Melissa Colazzo, Arizona Jenkins, Gus Ignas,
Here.
Bryn Dauphiné.
Here.
We do have an in-person quorum. Chair, would you call for a vote of consent for remote participation?
Thank you very much. I want to entertain a motion for consent for remote participation.
Second.
We have a motion made by Mr. Hayes, seconded by Mrs. Coyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. I believe we have a new person with us today. Ms. Grunman, who, did I pronounce Grunman?
Yes, correct.
Who is with Hillsborough County Public Works. Welcome,
Thank you.
and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this board. Thank you.
Alternate to Larry.
At this point, we have Nicholas Board, one of the TPO board of the member. Okay, do we have any public comment at this time?
We don't see any in the audience, and we had none online.
Then I will turn to Mr. Hay.
I just wanted to take a moment as vice chair to, I don't know if everyone knows, but this is Councilman Citro's last Livable Roadways meeting. So as vice chair, I just want to say that, thank you very much for your service to this committee. I know as also a staff member that represents in front of City Council, I know that you really care about the citizens of Tampa and the pedestrians and the cyclists of the whole region. So I just want to say thank you. I know we'll be seeing you shortly and look forward to that. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Hay and board members. I have a wonderful experience with this board. And I've learned, not to be cliche, but that our roadways are our veins in our life. And if our roadways are clogged, our arteries are clogged, nothing can get accomplished. And if they're clogged, people are in danger. This is the whole idea about livable roadways, which we can get around safely, but protect the citizens, both of Tampa and Hillsborough County. Again, I have had the pleasure of being your chair for a year and a half now, 2 years?
2 years.
And it has been great fun. The discussions we've had, the points that we have made, the impressions that we have made on the TPO, I congratulate each and every one of you for bringing your ideas and your thoughts to this board so that we can express ourselves. Again, it has been my pleasure working with you, and I know that you will carry on the great tradition of this board. Thank you.
Provided by Vice Chair Hay, so help yourself. And the chair has to leave early for another obligation, so he's not betting on us. So, right? We have a full agenda though.
All right, then let's start with, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 22nd, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion made by Mr. Hayes, seconded by Mr. O'Hare. All in favor, say aye. Is there any opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Let's go with our staff reports. Pardon? Oh, I am sorry. If we could please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Okay, staff reports. We're going to have 41 in CSX. Greg Fox. Thank you, Mr. Fox.
It's a little tricky to hear you with the air conditioner on, so if you would speak right into the microphone, that really helps.
Sure, no problem. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Greg Fox with the Florida Department of Transportation District 7 here to present on 41 CSX.
Okay, there it is.
Do I have to hit share up here or?
It's up there.
Okay, so
Yep, you're good.
Okay. And I do also want to introduce my colleagues that are here today.
Boyd Mullen, RTNK, seeing the PDD portion of the project.
This is the relevant RFP University. Okay, a little louder because we're recording and there's people online.
Sorry, Liz Rello will oversee the drainage. That was Boyd Mullen, oversee the PDD.
Thank you.
Brandon Anderson with KCA, roadway engineer of record for design.
Thank you. Our recording secretary really appreciates it.
No worries. Always forget to introduce myself. Yeah. All right, so I'm here to present on the US 41 at CSX project development environment study design change reevaluation. That's about what we'll get to line next slides. All right, so first, just some context about where we are in the project. On the green line to the right of the screen, going north and south, that's US 41, and east-west is Causeway Boulevard. And at the top left corner, that's Tampa Port. That's where we're going to have a public hearing location. And I'll get into that at the end of the slides. So first, I want to review the purpose and need for this reevaluation. The purpose is to reduce traffic delays around the CSX railroad crossing and also to support the safety of trucks and freight throughout that region. We're also going to enhance connectivity among bicycle and pedestrians within the area. The need is because during peak hours, you have heavy delays. There's a high level of truck traffic along the corridor, along with some heavily used railroad crossings that actually spreads out to just a lot of switches west of 41. So that causes a lot of back because trains reverse on and off the tracks. There's also no current bicycle facilities along US 41, so we want to facilitate that also. Now, like I mentioned before, this is a design change reevaluation. So in 1994, we actually had the environmental assessment of the funds, the final no significant impact. That was completed in 1994. These limits were a lot larger than what we're evaluating today. And looked at Causeway Boulevard as a 6-lane roadway from State Road 60 to approximately 7 miles east of US 31. And at this intersection, which we're discussing today, you'll see in the image, it proposed a grade separated crossing at US 41 and Causeway Boulevard, and also a grade separated crossing at US 41 and the CSX railroad tracks to the south. One thing I do want to note is that we are no longer pursuing a 6-lane facility along Causeway Boulevard, and we're only pursuing the grade separated crossing at the CSX railroad crossing and not the grade separated crossings at Causeway Boulevard as was proposed in that 1994 study. However, this project is not precluded having in the future. That's just not part of this reevaluation of the project today. So just getting into the two roadways that we're dealing with today. First, starting with Causeway Boulevard. The length is approximately 0.6 miles. It's currently a 4-lane divided road. And the project limits are from west of South 45th Street to just west of the CSX railroad crossing to the east. Now, I do want to note there are 2 railroad crossings in here. The first one is going where my mouse is, and it goes north south across Causeway Boulevard. The project limits end just before that railroad crossing. So from further discussion in this conversation is going to only involve the railroad south here, crosses US 41. Just want to note that. The existing right of way along Causeway Boulevard is around between 100 and 150. The next road we're dealing with is US 41. This length is approximately 1.3 miles. It's an existing 6-lane divided roadway. And the limits of this study are from Denver Street to the south to South 22nd Street to the north. The existing right of way along US 41 typically ranges between 100 and 250 feet. Sorry, that's a typo in there. So it's just 41. Right, so Causeway Boulevard is an important east-west corridor. It's predominantly an industrial and commercial area with small residential pockets and isolated areas along the corridor. It is a hurricane evacuation route, and it is part of the strategic intermodal system west of US 41. And as far as US 41 goes, it's supported north-south corridor. It's part of the critical freight corridor network. It's predominantly industrial and commercial, again with small residential pockets throughout the corridor. It is a hurricane evacuation route, and it is also part of the strategic intermodal system just south of Causeway Boulevard. So the SIS network runs north on 41 and then west on Causeway in this area. There's also a CIS railroad corridor that's east of 41 and a CIS railroad connector that's south of Causeway Boulevard. Now, quickly reviewing the existing typical sections. Like I mentioned on the previous slides, Causeway Boulevard is the existing four-lane roadway, 2 lanes in each direction. There are also turn lanes that are exhibited on here at various locations when you come up to the larger intersections at 41. Now, for the 41 roadway, that is currently a 6-lane typical section with a median separated on the south to the south of Causeway Boulevard, and to the north is separated by a two-way left turn crossing to the north. So it's not a raised median, it's just a painted two-way left turn lane crossing to the north of Causeway Boulevard. Now we'll get to the proposed typical sections. So for Causeway Boulevard, although it does look wide on here, I do want to note that this is representative of actually close to the intersection of 41, so it doesn't stand out for those turn lanes. But we are maintaining the 4-lane typical section with turn lanes, triple rights west of US 41. On the east side of US 41, you do also have turn lanes. You have dual lefts, and those are coming towards the screen. But it does remain that 4-lane typical section. So, like I mentioned, we are maintaining the 4-lane typical section. We are widening at the intersections with some turn lanes, but the roadway itself is going to remain a 4-lane typical section. And moving on to US 41, that is going to remain as a 6-lane typical section. The limits here are from south of Denver to Delaney Creek, as is shown on the yellow image, the yellow marker, the south end, and then north from Causeway Boulevard, south of Causeway Boulevard to 23rd Avenue is also going to remain a 6-lane typical section as it is today. Again, widening at certain intersections for turn lanes. And now we get to the grade separated portion. So as you approach that CS6 railroad crossing that my mouse is hovering over, we do separate to a grade separated portion. So we continue the same 3 lanes, although they are grade separated. And we also add a frontage road, a 2-way frontage road on the west side. And this typical section runs from Raleigh Street to 30th Avenue. And there are 3 bridges proposed within this project. The first one is at Delaney Creek. Second one is at 36th Street or Tollway Avenue. And the third one is at CSX. This does provide the opportunity, for vehicles to have access at St. Paul Street across 41 at 36. And then at Delaney Creek, you just cross the creek there, so there's no actual roadway crossing because we're actually at grade. All right, now to stormwater management. There are no adverse impacts to floodplains, so there's no floodplain compensation is required for this project. We do propose 4 stormwater management ponds. They're the ones that shown on the screen. Going from south to north, we start with Hartford Avenue, which we have proposed there. A loop road from the front road. So that's the first proposed pond. The second proposed pond is at 34th Avenue on the east side of 41. And the third and fourth ones, we're proposing expanding some existing reptile ponds. That's green there, standing further west along Causeway Boulevard. So that was about the 34th part. So that requires an additional 10.65 acres of right of way for the stormwater management. So as part of the reevaluation, we are looking at different environmental effects covering social environment, cultural resources, natural resources, and physical environments. At the public hearing, we will have draft documents on display, and along with our presentation, we'll get into those different topics. The estimated project cost for design is 5.5 million. Design is ongoing at this time, so that number may rise a little bit. Pass it to Mrs. to complete the design. Right away, right now it's under 49.86 million, but the mitigation is around 2,000. The CEI is 14.24, that's what's programmed, and construction is 121.78 million, with the total project cost from design through construction of 191 million. Now, this plan is consistent with the long-range transportation plan, the 2045 LRTP. Now, we can review the schedule of funding. So the reevaluation began in 2018, is ongoing, and that's why we're here today. Data collection did start that summer, is ongoing also, along with the engineering and environmental analysis. We did have an alternative public workshop in November of 2019, which had various concepts in there. The concept that's most similar to is one that actually had a flyover going on North 41 connected over Causeway Boulevard. So we may remember that. But due to just the cost, to make the project more cost feasible, we took out a flyover, and now we're just crossing that grade separation there at CSX to make it more feasible, so we can actually build the project. So design activity started in summer of 2020. They're ongoing at the moment. We have a hearing slated for June 1st. We'll get into that location in the next slides. And we're just being the PDD, so the reevaluation approval in the fourth quarter of 2024. As far as funding is concerned, design has been funded since 2018. Right-of-way acquisition is funded in fiscal years 2022, 2023, and construction is not currently funded at this time. So the public hearing, we're going to hold it on June 1st. It's going to be at Port Tampa Bay, Terminal 6. And with all our public hearings, there's an option to attend in person and both online. So we're definitely inviting folks out. It's about a month out from now. So we haven't sent out the notices just as yet. We'll send them out closer to the date. So people will be getting, people members will be getting notices, and the residents will be getting notices. And that wraps up our presentation. We do have the project website available, the QR code and then the link. And now I'd like to open up for any questions.
Comments, questions, Ms. Coyle?
What is your plan for funding construction?
So because it is on the CIS network, we do have, it is tentative funded on the CIS work program in 2030s, but we are looking to advance that construction funding, but right now we're just not sure when it will be advanced. So we're advancing the design. The max we'll probably take to is like 60%, but we do have a strong commitment to try to get that done.
Mr. Kress.
Craig, I didn't see what the speed limit or proposed speed limit is on any of your slides. Is that changing in any way?
Yeah, you're right. Do not have the speed limits on the slides.
Design speed for 41 is 50 miles per hour, and 45 would be retained on Causeway.
So that leads me to my next question. Thank you. With speeds, design speeds that high, is it an FDOT policy to just have a striped white bike lane? You know, stripe and paint for a bike lane separation?
So in
With
41,
all the target zero discussions and everything else?
yeah, so on 41, what we're trying to do is actually, so we're actually looking to have 10-foot,
Yeah.
so we're actually looking to have 10-foot sidewalks along 41 and then 7-foot buffer bike lane. Once we get to the grade separate portion, that'll actually make it a lot better for cyclists because we're going to take the traffic off. We're not trying to put cyclists and pedestrians on the elevated structure. We're more so encouraging them to get onto that frontage road system. So the frontage road system is going to be a lot of traffic. We're still going to put 10-foot sidewalks along the frontage road system. We're also adding signalized crossing at Hartford to get folks that are on because the frontage road can be only on one side of the roadway. This is through coordination through CSX because they just don't like a lot of crossing. They don't want to do another frontage road on the east side of the road. They just want it on one side. So we have a signal at Hartford, and also we have increased pedestrian connectivity at the Causeway Boulevard intersection, adding Splitter Islands, and connecting the front road system. We're also going to have crossings for pedestrians at 36 St. Paul and at 36th Street or Tollway Avenue, so that folks can still get to the east side without having to deal with the grade separating portion. So by widening out the sidewalks to 10 feet, and by adding buffer bike lanes, we know it's not the ideal situation for this corridor, but that's kind of what we can get to kind of fit in. So we're over that, with a wider sidewalk, cyclists would, rather choose that, but of course some are, ravers, so they can then take the 7-foot buffer bike lane if they so choose, but we want to provide a bike facility for at least for bikes and pedestrians.
So when you say buffered bike lane, what's the buffer?
So the buffers are striping.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, the buffers are striping.
So if it's a 10-foot sidewalk, do you not call that a multi-use path? It falls
No,
short of being called a multi-use path, I guess.
So in some instances, okay, so you can some multi-use paths can get down to a minimum of 10 feet, but you could also just have like sidewalks that could be, once you get around 10 feet, it's kind of like a gray area. But for this intended purpose, it is a 10-foot sidewalk.
Well, it seems like there's quite a focus on target zero at the department, so I would suggest in your presentations just calling that out, and especially to a group like ours. I have more questions, but I'll cede to someone else.
Ms. Hisdale.
Yeah, I would, adding on to what Karen says, this is the Livable Roadways Committee, so we're trying to find ways to make our roads preserve life. I'm not sure that I would see a bike lane buffered only by this big a white stripe as livable as a usable space then. So I think that I would personally be looking for either some sort of protection, or if you have that wide sidewalk, why not widen it further? Like get rid of a bike lane that is very dangerous and instead turn that into a real multi-use path. And I also, I'm sorry, wanted to add, if you are putting, encouraging bikers to use the frontage road instead of the bridges, which makes sense, there's not any kind of bike facility there except the sidewalk. So making that into a space that is multi-use might be more effective.
We're going to go with Mr. O'Hare, Mr. Hay, and then Mr. Joseph.
I just had a quick question for you actually on section 4 here.
Sure.
How does, I understand the frontage road for local traffic, and so it sounds like you're going to keep the crossing, the railroad crossing at that frontage road.
Yes.
So you'll raise it for, commuting traffic or
Yes.
truck traffic, and then the local road will still have the crossing. How does the local frontage road merge back into US 41 past the creek?
That's an excellent question. So what we're doing, and we actually have this on the, we're actually gonna have this on the concept plans that we have at the public hearing. What we're planning on doing is taking the frontage road system up to 31st. Exactly, but the 30th. And at that point, it's gonna divert to the local grid network in this corner. We're also looking at punching through an additional crossing across Causeway Boulevard at 47th Street. This right now it's actually currently Hillsborough County owned land, but just folks and business owners have built on it, so we're gonna bring that back to the county. We're also looking to do improvements along those local street networks. So cyclists and pedestrians will be able to still connect straight up to Causeway via sidewalk. But local traffic can then divert to local streets to get to either 47th if they want to go westbound on Causeway Boulevard, or they can also cross at Sagasta, which is the current road connecting to Causeway Boulevard. And that's the way we'll connect them. So connecting on the west side. So basically the two-way frontage road will end, and northbound traffic will be diverted onto the local network here, and they'll have the opportunity to exit here or the additional exit for the west. As we're trying to get it signalized, but still have to go through those warrants. Bike pedestrian traffic will be able to still go straight onto Causeway Boulevard.
Is there any coordination with, I assume that those grids are county-owned roads?
They are.
And I assume they're probably not very well maintained in this
Yeah.
part of the county?
Yeah.
So is there any coordination with the county on any kind of improvements to those roads, just since you're gonna
Yes.
have a lot of local traffic using those new intersections?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we've had a couple meetings with the county on specifically, this concern, that spiders can cause more traffic on their roads. We're looking at what we can do to improve those roads. We're still working on those plans, but at a minimum, we'll service it, but we're looking to do more than that, to provide for safety.
Last note, Chairman, is, to Ms. Hinsdale's point regarding a multi-use trail in lieu of a, painted bike lane. I think with this frontage road, definitely is a little bit more inviting since it's a 2-lane road for folks in that area to use either recreationally or, to get to where they need to go, or at least connect on the causeway so that they can access the facilities there. I definitely would encourage that as you're reworking the grid there and reworking that frontage road, having that multi-use trail connect on the north and the south side back onto the actual road, I think helps in terms of if there's any type of future trail use that goes up and down US 41, better to think ahead on these things than have it as an afterthought. And then 10 years from now, we're like, what if we did a trail there? And it's, well, we could start with the $200 million we just spent on, fixing this great intersection. So, thank you.
If I may interject, a shaded tree line trail. Mr. Hay.
Very good comment. I would agree with that comment. Okay, I'm gonna build on Mr. O'Hare's comments here. So if I'm traveling south down Causeway in a car, in a vehicle,
Sorry, so you mean 41?
oh yeah, 41, sorry. I'm traveling down 41, 50th Street, and then I need to get on the local road. I have to take a right at Causeway and then a left onto, or there's just a lane just to get right on the,
Yeah, so,
okay.
so around, and then, and that's a good question to bring up. So going south on 41, you will have the opportunity to make basically kind of like a, for lack of a better term, kind of like a slip ramp onto that frontage road system, and it's going to be one-way southbound.
Right.
Because of course we don't want two-way traffic coming to Fort Worth. It creates dangerous, long-way traffic conditions. So you will be able to get into the frontage road system at the intersection going southbound 41. So you have a choice to either go on the frontage road or go on the overpass portion.
Okay, so if you're traveling north on 41, you would get off again on the slip lane and then take the bridge underneath, right, to get over onto the local.
So if you're
going north.
Now, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So northbound 41, are you trying to get the local network by saying this quadrant over
I'm
here?
trying to get over, if I'm going on North 41, I'm trying to get on the new local road that FDOT's building.
Okay.
I would, right, get off the slip lane
Yes.
and then go under the bridge, the new bridge that you guys
Yes,
are.
correct. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So what you can do, so there's kind of two ways you can do it. So at Hartford, we're going to have a signalized intersection there. So if you want to, you can make a left turn and that'll take you on the front of the road system. You'd also go on northbound 41. We're going to have an exit ramp just before it gets grid separated. That'll take you onto the that first crossing, 36, that actually right here. So you'll be able to exit onto the 36th Street and cross over the front of the road system right here.
The lanes that are out there currently now, are they 12 feet wide?
No.
No,
They vary between 10 and 11.
okay, yeah, because when you have those huge work trucks right on top of you, so, okay. I'm done.
Mr. Joseph. I think they kind of answered some of my questions, but I do have a couple others. So is the front road going to remain DOT?
Yes.
Right away?
Yes.
So we're speaking to what we talked about, like lanes and so forth. We're developing new typical sections for Hillsborough County, and we're on the what we call higher speed streets. So we're trying to target very low speeds. Our higher speed streets are 45 miles an hour. We only have
a handful of roads in the county that are 50, 55 miles an hour. So when we're taking the bike lanes off the street and creating multi-use trails, there's an option for constrained right of way to put the bike lanes back on the street. But so in conjunction with what was said about the landscaping on those typical sections, we also have put in a corridor next to the bike lane to landscape that with shading trees. So if you can do that on this project, that would be very helpful.
Can we take a moment to clap or
Yes.
no?
Let's be clear that it is DOT's policy, it's the remains their policy unless some miracle occurred that they put sod on their right of ways and sod only. Anything above and beyond that is an interlocal agreement with local jurisdiction.
Check the space.
So anyway, a lot of what we're trying to do is, target vision zero, make things comfortable and make people want to use these facilities. And one of the ways of doing that is to shade the facilities and make it more comfortable, especially since the temperature in Florida has increased over the last 10 years. And we don't know if it's going to keep increasing or level out. But anyway, just wanted to cover that. Ms. Silva.
Okay, sorry. My other hat, besides Livable Roadways, is in trade and logistics planning. And this has been our #1 great project for all of my time here at the TPO. So love seeing it go forward, but it's completely morphed into a totally different new design today. So it was elevated before over Causeway, which all of South County was like always super, yay, it's our #1 project because it's like traffic impacts galore. And I thought it kind of went over both railroads when you elevated it the one way, it went over and at one turn. So now you're not going to get stopped by the train going north, but if you're going on Causeway, you will get stopped by the same train. So that's a little concerning. But then I'm also the Vision Zero coordinator. So yeah, it's a little disturbing in this day and age to see 12-foot lanes where on a high injury roadway. I'm not sure if this is in the top 20 off the top of my head, but these speeds, I concur with Hillsborough County. Why would we be targeting that high of a speed in this day and age? We don't need to fly on a straight wide road. Also, in your cross sections, one of them you showed buffered bike lane, but in all the others you just showed 10 feet. So then I'm like, well, which is going to be constructed? And then on the frontage road, I would imagine that would be a low speed design, yet you're still showing very wide lanes and no buffered. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and you don't say the speed limit, the design speed on that one or the target speed. So I would hope that one is really, really low, like below killing people. Speed.
Yeah, so what we do about current presentations, we can add the design speeds or the citizen posted speeds to the presentation. And one of the reasons why we have the 12-foot length of the front row system is because we did from the public comments that we got at the alternatives public alternatives workshop there was a concern from business around that area for trucks to come in and out.
Yeah.
And these trucks are varying size, so we're definitely trying to be cautious about maintaining, so they still have access, because of course you don't want trucks like run up on the sidewalk or anything like that. While at the same time, we know that since it's a frontage road, you're gonna have kind of wide lanes, but you also have the vast majority of traffic is gonna be on the great separate proportion. So it's kind of a balance we have to have there between make sure that we accommodate all the truck movements that are approaching on the sidewalk, while at the same time.
All right, but the traffic on the main line will be going slow because everybody's going on the main line. So you have congestion at your front, where the frontage road, if there isn't a lot of traffic, then it just becomes a raceway. So other speed management techniques would be desirable on that, and to break that up. And just because you add the design speed on them doesn't mean you're like, we would like to see the design speed lower that you're designing for, and then you would have access to all the great tools you have in your design manual to be applying most safety features you can to this roadway. Oh, and because it's a freight project and the number one still ranked, we just submitted it in March again as the MPO, as the number one project. Freight funding is available to you. So
Ms. Hinsdale, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Hay.
Yeah, I just wanted to, do we have an answer as to what the proposed speed on the frontage road is?
It's 30 miles per hour.
30.
And we'll use traffic calming measures in terms of stop control conditions.
And landscape.
Along the.
That's not here.
Good. Mr. Hay,
Landscaping, but, you know, we can work with the county.
Mr. Hay, Ms. Kress, and then I go to Ms. Inges.
When you went back through the slides, it jogged my memory again to a couple of more questions. Lighting. I don't think out there right now there's any streetlights.
Yeah. So the PD stage, we don't study lighting, but we do have lighting in the design.
Okay, so both for the frontage and the highway portion or whatever.
Yeah.
The signalized intersections at a minimum, so we're still looking at including lighting along the entire frontage road.
I would encourage more lighting, especially in that area, because it's isolated sometimes. The other thing was about the sizes of the retention ponds. I will say the ones out there currently won't win any community design awards for their aesthetic features. Are there going to be maybe some aesthetic features above just, a chain link fence and some water and trash in there, or?
Yeah, so right now it's not the department's policy to fence in ponds. If we were to add some aesthetics to it, it would kind of be the same route with landscaping, which have to get to agreement with the county for that, so we can, we have ongoing meetings with the county, so we can certainly bring that up.
So what, I missed what you said.
Sorry,
The standard is that you don't fence them?
Yes. So not saying that we can't, not saying that we can fence them, but right now the default is to not fence ponds. And if we were to add any aesthetics to it, it would be the same route, kind of with landscaping. So we'd have to discuss that, hopefully, with an agreement with them.
So the ones out there currently at the intersection, are those county ponds, or are they owned by you?
No, these are DOT ponds, but the standards would kind of bounce back and forth sometimes.
Okay.
That's in the right all the time, and sometimes not. Yeah, right now.
Look more. And I will say the long-term plan, even though the industrial will say the long-term plan for the county land use wise is that Palm River is going to intensify over the horizon of the plan. More multifamily is envisioned all on Causeway under some of that land use that's there now. So what we're seeing there now may not be what's there in 20 years. So I think we just got to keep
We
that.
provided the community plan comments.
Okay, thank you.
Who was I going to next? Ms. Kress, and then Mr. Ignis.
On the project schedule, you mentioned, I think in 2018 or 19, that you did data collection. Was that just counting cars, or did you count people walking and biking and transit use out there as well? Do you know, is that part of your data collection?
Yes, we did look at transit use, and the bus stops have actually, so I've actually removed the route that they had on there. So there's still bus bays existing along the corridor, but right now our
That was going to be kind of my next question. Maybe it's for you, Jesus. Is there a future potential for this to be kind of a robust transit route? And if so, is there anything you can do in the design right now to accommodate that, especially with David's comment about, the nature of these areas are going to be changing, growing, et cetera. I don't want to preclude an enhanced transit service right now in this early design.
Yeah, especially given what David said. It is a possibility. It's not currently forecasted because it's all budget based. But I think Causeway, just like many other corridors that have lost service throughout the last 20 years, could be a potential future transit corridor, especially if it intensifies. But again, we don't expect you to spend now the money, but we also don't want to preclude. So.
Is there anything you can do in the design that would accommodate transit better? I'm not a roadway engineer.
Yeah.
So I don't really know, but.
I mean, far as causeway is concerned, we're kind of keeping it to the existing typical section. So I mean, besides, having turn-ins at the intersection, it can function still kind of the same way it does today. So that's not really going to include anything. Anything that happen now will be able to happen in the future to causeway, at least. On 41, I mean, the benefit to bus that is not getting stuck at that, the railroad crossing right there. If it wants to skip over, it wants to go front of the system, it has the opportunity along there too. So I don't really see things that would right now preclude, transit running along there. If other options were to be looked at, whether they're BRT or something like that, that would have to be kind of a deeper discussion with, then that involves, the lane purposing, which is much kind of higher level than what we're discussing today.
And another, I was just talking to someone who lives in this area. I'm not as familiar with it, but another suggestion for your presentations, and I think you already know this, Craig, too, is how does this connect with other multi-use trails or trail connections in the area? Because it sounds like there's some unfortunate gaps kind of in this area that really prevent someone from commuting, bike commuting.
Yeah, so when we look at the latest Greenways and Trails plan, the only things that are really proposed in the area, I mean, I know there's the McKay Trail, it's kind of within that facility in the northwest quadrant, but that's not really proposed to go further south. And then along the roads, I believe causeways are so proposed as a complete street, but right now there's no proposed trails within that area. We know we have the trail on 40, when you get across the bridge further to the west, there's a trail on there, but right now it's not in any future plans to extend further south. But we are going to look into the conversation today about widening on 41, and we'll have to look see what we can accommodate, and certainly have to come back and let you guys know.
And then my last comment, if I may, I'm trying to imagine myself as a pedestrian with triple right and dual lefts. So is there an opportunity as a pedestrian to push a button and have that be restricted so I can get across safely, or like a restricted right on red kind of that would be pedestrian activated?
So right now we're still relatively early on in the design phase to make that decision, but we have incorporated a lot of pedestrian islands within the design, and also the new standards require two-stage crossings across the roadway. So we have wider medians not only within the intersection but also on those workshops too. Crossing over those requirements, we have enhanced crossings along there too. And we'll have all these on display at the public hearing. Which sort of those concepts really available right now, but we can just certainly add it to the comments as far as whether we can restrict that to when it's activated.
I would like to ask that to happen, because like a triple right, I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Trying to cross that.
It is. Yeah, triple rights are pretty challenging.
Thank you.
And it doesn't feel like, because we're vehicular drivers, but this is a transit dependent, other modes other than vehicular community. So they are getting around.
Let's hear this.
It seems like there's an up, down, up, down, up, down. The places where these side roads are coming in, like at St. Paul Street, does the data support the traffic, the increased grade actually coming back down to those streets?
So what? I'm sorry.
I don't know how residential like St. Paul is, where how much commercial traffic is coming off of St. Paul onto 41. Does it really substantiate bringing the road back down to level to allow that traffic intersection, that side section? Would it just not make more sense to make an underpass onto the frontage road, as opposed to making St. Paul Street connect to both roads?
So the good news is we're actually not going up, down, up, down. At Delaney Creek, that currently right now is over. Looking at spread that over to a bridge, but so for the most part, that's going to be at grade. So you'll be able to cross Delaney Creek. And then at that point, that's when the road will start to elevate. And the road is going to continue to elevate until it crosses the CSX crossing and then come back down. So at 36th Street, that'll provide opportunity for folks, both pedestrians and vehicles, to make a turn there. And then at St. Paul, we're going to kind of keep the road. That's going to be a single, not a single person, but it's going to be a relatively large span crossing that the CSX railroad crossing. And we're not going to dip down before we get to St. Paul. So we're going to cross St. Paul and then we're going to start coming down. So it's not going to be kind of wavy, kind of action. Send you up and
Any other comments? Mr. Garcia?
Hi, thank you, Craig. I have 3 comments. I'm gonna go from more brief to less brief. The first is a plug and an invitation to forgo.
Oh, you said a plug?
A plug, like a shameless plug.
Oh, sure, okay, sure.
Sorry. And invitation to forgo car trips. So your public hearing is Terminal 6.
Yes.
You can get the streetcar, public street station, Station 5, or you can take bus routes 8 and 9. Get off at Kennedy and 12 or Channelside and Harbor. So if you wanna shameless plug transit on your hearing invite. And it's before 8 or what, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m.
Yeah,
on a weekday.
5:30, yeah.
We have plenty of service at that time. So.
Yeah, that's great.
And so that was the less brief. The second one was I wanted to keep beating the dead horse about high-speed streets and bike lanes. I think it seems like a Venn diagram to me. So you have like your gray streets in West Shore, that's like clearly a bike road. And then you have your MLKs, Fowlers, US 41s that it might make more sense to forego the bike lane and just make a wider thing on the side. I understand short term it's better just a paint job, like on MLK and Fowler, you just stripe it. But since this is like a bigger thing, I guess it might be worthwhile looking into it. And then the less brief one, I know there was some back and forth about the tentative work plan for this year, about this project making it into it. Does this presentation mean that it's making it into the work plan?
No, so still currently unfunded for the 5-year work program.
Oh, it's a construction piece that didn't make it into the work plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, yes, we have design funding, we have right-of-way funding. Precious a little bit more right-of-way funding than inflation is bringing up to all of us. But right now, we don't have, but that construction funding has been in place at this point.
Okay, thank you.
The 2 crossings, I'm sorry, any more comments or questions? The 2 crossings of the CSX, does any entity pay insurance for those crossings?
I don't believe that we pay insurance.
Okay.
For that, because we just have.
In the city of Tampa, when we cross any CSX, we have to pay insurance for that.
Yeah, the streetcar.
We have to pay insurance for that. Just wondering about that.
Because I know those perpendicular rail crossings are a much bigger, a much bigger deal.
I'm trying to figure some cost savings.
Definitely not.
Somewhere along the line with a projected budget of $191.4 million today. By the time it goes to shovel ready, that's going to be well over $225 million in the next 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And so my closing comment, if nobody else has any more comments or questions, can't we justify making it a much safer road for all types of mobility, walking, biking, scooters, and vehicles? By the time this comes to fruition, if we're going to spend that amount of money, it should be safe for all people. I thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, and Vision Zero is priority number 1 from this board, if I may say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, we have a Hillsborough County TPO electric vehicle infrastructure. I can't wait to hear about this.
Good morning. Connor McDonald, TPO staff. All right, Connor McDonald, TPO staff, good morning. I'm here to present the TPO electric vehicle infrastructure plan, the status report on the plan. We also have the consultant, Chris Bain, present online as well. So the purpose of the plan is to identify locations where EV infrastructure can be deployed, provide a framework for prioritizing charging stations, and offer recommendations for compatible land development. So why? Because there's a growing demand for electric vehicles, not to mention the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, for example, will provide $2.5 billion to cities, counties, local governments, and tribes for electric vehicle infrastructure. So the schedule, in December of last year, we started the fundamentals and industry background research. Then continued on to public outreach and stakeholder engagement. Continued doing existing conditions analysis, further into the EV adoption scenarios and forecasts. Soon we'll make the recommendations and have a final report in June or July, presentations to committees and the board in August of this year. So there are some existing plans in the area as well as national and state plans. In the area, we have the hard zero emission fleet transition plan, and as well as jurisdictional comprehensive plans. If we're missing any, glad to take those. Florida would have some FDOT infrastructure master plan. National, there are some plans as well, and other. Orlando has a 2030 electric mobility roadmap. So some fundamentals of EV and charging infrastructure for background. The benefits can be reduced fuel costs, reduced emissions, and maintenance costs. Some barriers to adoption are often the purchase price, charging access, or misinformation, or lack of trust in electric vehicles. Some types of EVs, battery electric vehicle, so you can think Tesla, Nissan Leaf, and Rivian. Plug-in hybrids, so you can Chevrolet Bolt, Ford Fusion Energy. Hybrid electric vehicles, which would be Toyota Prius, Ford Maverick. And fuel cell electric vehicles, which are more common for buses and long-haul trucks. So just some background on the actual infrastructure itself. Level 1 would be like what you would imagine as your household toaster. Level 2 would be a dryer, and level 3 would be an air conditioner. So kind of imagine the intensity of the charge. So for the existing infrastructure in Hillsborough County for level 1, these are primarily like household chargers. So these are public chargers looking at here, publicly accessible. Level 1, there's 8. Level 2, 387, and level 3, 94. So for current land development codes and comprehensive plan language, Hillsborough County directly addresses the role that the county plays in electrification of transportation by stating incentivize the use of electric vehicles, the implementation, expansion of EV charging stations. The city of Tampa, the comprehensive plan does not outrightly address electric vehicles, but in the land development code, the city prohibits all other vehicles except those charging to park in electric vehicle charging spaces. The city of Tampa is also working on some more electric vehicle plans, and comprehensive plans, and the land development code. Plan City does not outrightly address the plan does not outrightly address EVs. The land development code encourages development of EV charging spaces. Says EV charging spaces must be supplied with a working charger signed to indicate use solely for EV charging. The city of Temple Terrace does not outrightly address EVs in the comprehensive plan or the land development code. So some adoption trends in Hillsborough County. You can see that high increase from 2020 to 2021 in the Tampa Bay area of 9 major U.S. metro areas where used EVs are selling faster than conventional vehicles. In Florida, in 2035, 25 and 20% of light-duty vehicles are projected to be EVs. And nationwide, by 2030, 32% of annual light-duty sales are projected to be EVs, with 26.4 million on U.S. roads. So some adoption scenarios for preliminary findings that we're seeing currently, the projected EV adoption. So currently EV adoption in Hillsborough County is higher than Florida and lower than Orange County and Orlando. So we've extrapolated those rates and predicted the median EV projection by 2050. Florida and the city of Orlando have defined projected EV adoption rates, and we're expected to be somewhere between Florida and Orlando in 2050. So again, some preliminary findings, evaluation criteria for potential charging locations. Potentially it would serve a gap in the charging network, serve a commercial or Main Street district, and serve people who can't charge at home, maybe live in multi-family dwelling units or multi-family housing, and not have access to a charger in that housing. What should be considered in choosing a charging location? Design allows for different users to access. bathroom facilities, food options, and indoor waiting area. Some potential funding options could be private developers, there's a T-code grant program, federal funding, and then community charging, national electric vehicle infrastructure funding opportunity, as well as just funding from local governments. So we did have some public outreach. We had an advisory committee meeting, which some of you attended, and others from your staff, from your representative organization attended as well. So we appreciate that. We had a stakeholder session that we're continuing, and also a public survey. So as of March, there were 69 responses. In the end, there were 121 responses, I believe. About half the people who responded to the survey currently drive EVs. 80% shared their home zip code. And of those who shared their home zip code, you can see a great number live in the northwest portion. So current EV drivers most commonly charge at home, about 90%. And about 75% of the respondents simply use public chargers on holiday trips or vacations. The respondents indicated that their preferred amenities were bathroom facilities, food options, and indoor waiting area. They also indicated that barriers to EV adoption included purchase price, availability, charging time, and concern about evacuations. So some next steps, complete the outreach and forecasting analysis first, then provide recommendations, EV charging locations with equitable access analysis, framework for prioritizing EV charging locations, as well as policy recommendations for local jurisdictions. And this will all culminate in a final report available this summer and going to the board and committees again. Again, going to the board and committees in August. So for more information, we do have a webpage where you can read the existing conditions report. My contact information is on the webpage as well, but I'll take any questions or comments that you have.
Comments, questions? Ms. Ignis.
I don't have EV, so can you provide some basic information at the introduction of this? How long does the average car take to recharge? Or, I mean, we're talking an hour, a person sitting there, or 20 minutes, or that would further dictate the additional facilities that are needed. If it's a 10-minute recharge, you can sit in your car for 10 minutes.
Right.
You know, but if it's an hour, that's additional facilities that become mandatory.
Right. As far as time, the level one, I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe the level ones take about like 8 hours minimum. So people usually have their level ones in their houses and their garages. Level 3 minimum would be about 30 minutes, and that would last about 75 to 300 miles per hour on charge. So per hour, you can, the longer you charge, the miles you get. But the minimum is typically about 30 minutes for level 3, and for level 1, it's get a lower miles.
For those of us who don't have that information is important because then we start gauging things by that basis.
Absolutely.
Would you mind leaving that slide up? Any other comments or questions? Mr. O'Hare and then Ms. Kress.
Just a quick question regarding some of I know that there's a lot of different types of chargers. I often have daydreams of what it takes for me to scrounge up enough pennies and nickels to buy an electric car. So definitely one of those who are a little bit more price conscious of procuring one of these. But I understand that there wasn't a lot talked about in the presentation regarding different types of chargers. So there's like Electrify America, there's obviously Tesla, there's a couple other brands. How is the different brands of electric chargers, so I guess the providers, in conjunction with the type of cars, because each car is going to have a slightly different charger, how is that factored into kind of the public engagement or the education component or just some of the recommendations that you're making?
That's an excellent question. So as far as the different types of chargers for different cars, there are adapters, maybe using a Tesla that need an adapter. And that's typically, from my research, that's typically brought by the user and not by the charging company itself. So I'm not familiar with how that would play out, but I can look into it.
The last thing I did want to add is, one of the things I find fascinating, especially as, we're popping up chargers at different locations across the county, any type of display or comparison to, say, gas stations and where EV chargers are, would be a great comparison. I think a lot of that range anxiety comes from, well, I have to go get gas in order to evacuate. I have to get gas to drive my car to work. I can't get gas at my home. And for folks like renters who don't necessarily have access to an at-home charger, knowing that getting an electric car and going to charge your car is, not necessarily time on guard, but the experience is similar to that, since you have to go to a gas station anyway and sit at a pump. And if you're trying to save a penny and you're going to like Costco or Sam's Club, you're also waiting in line to fill up your tank, let alone to charge your car. So any type of comparison to the traditional combustion engine experience and that with electric car, I think would be helpful for breaking down some of those missed barriers.
Absolutely, thank you for that.
Ms. Kress.
So you can see where all chargers are from a couple different apps on your phone, just FYI. So I drive a Nissan Leaf. It was $10,000. They're affordable.
Like I said, pennies.
Yeah. But my range is 70 miles. So range anxiety is a real thing for me. From my real job, we did an EV charging analysis for downtown Tampa. So that might be of use to you.
Okay.
We located where all of the chargers are. It doesn't seem like anyone is collecting any data from any of the chargers. So I think that's an opportunity, especially for the data heavy TPO. Policies, do you limit the amount of time people are at a charger? Do you charge to charge, all that kind of thing. From a practicality, I think most people who are commuting only need level 1, but it's my understanding that you can't just open up just a plain old outlet in a parking garage because of the liability of a power surge might hurt your car. But all the EVs have that protection built in, so it's annoying. Because I could plug into level 2 and be charged in an hour, but then I'd have to go move my car. You know what I mean? So there's just kind of some inconveniences. And I'm really glad that you included bike, because EV bikes, I think electric bikes are going to be the next wave. So where can people charge those? I think it's an important question to be asking.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Not only have I seen that presentation, which is phenomenal, the Tampa partnership, which I asked Karen already by text to give me the link, but I learned of a TICO EV pilot at a Worcester Alliance meeting, and they have phenomenal data, and I didn't see it in your list of studies, so that'd be something to follow up on and get to your consultant as well.
TICO has a grant available to help commercial.
Yeah, and they're doing a pilot. It's really good.
We have been working with Chico as well. I was
Okay.
familiar with this band, but
Yeah, it might be a different silo.
Mr. Ignis.
If anybody's familiar with the show Black Mirror, there's actually an episode where the person has a rental car that's electric. She can't get it recharged because the rental car doesn't have the correct adapter. So wherever these adapter situations are, I think they have the assumption that, oh, you're going to have the right adapter for the right plug-in is not a fair assumption to make. It actually becomes a major plot line in the story. So wherever these are, multiple adapters need to be there so that multiple different cars can plug in and recharge.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Connor. As for charging adapters, that sounds like an Android versus iOS thing to me. I don't know if that's a government regulation, and that's why we only have 2 big block types. But that might be something beneficial to suggest to the powers that be, so that we don't have 20 different chargers. And I believe you are already coordinating with hard maintenance, but I wanted to bring it up because there might be an opportunity to coordinate the location of the charging stations, because there's no timeline yet, but it's in the near future that we'll start piloting electric buses. And there are the depot chargers, which is at the garage, but then there are the inline routers or on-route chargers. which are like out there. So I imagine a bus needs a AC level charger, and then a car just needs a toaster, but then it can be like a big, I don't know anything about tech, but just thinking out loud.
Yeah, absolutely. So the transit is one of our use case scenarios as well as freight. So hopefully there'll be some coordination as they use them.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. As a EV owner, he only paid $24,000 for his car. These two are basically home charging systems. This one will take anywhere from 10 to 12 hours to charge your car from 0 to full. This one will take anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to charge your car from empty to full. I love that misnomer about, well, if the electricity goes out, you can't charge your car. True. But if electricity goes out, you can't go down and pump gas into your car either. This, in my opinion, is the missing link. This should be at parking spaces in our urban core. So the people that come from out of town can go into the business in which they need to go into, plug into this, which only takes 15 to 20 minutes. Go in, do your business, come out, your car is charged. This is the missing link. This should be in every rest stop on FDOT property. So that when you're traveling from here to Tallahassee, here to Jacksonville, here to Miami, you stop in, plug into that, have yourself a soda, go take your bathroom break, and by the time you're done stretching your legs, 30 minutes later, your car is fully charged. This is the missing link for state, county, and city. Driving an electric vehicle is fantastic. Only once did I have to worry about running out of energy. And people say, well, you think you're cleaning the air by having an electric vehicle. You still have to use TECO to fill up your car. Yes, but even compared to a Toyota Corolla, my car is still only making 28% of the carbon emissions by plugging it into TECO to that Toyota Corolla is. So I'm happy with my electric car. I wish everybody would look into it, but this is the missing link. Put these in parking garages, put these in parking spaces, put these outside of Publix, put these outside of Walmart, put this in International Mall. That's the missing link. Any other comments or questions?
And at every gas station.
Yes, and Wawa is doing that, but not in the core.
Yeah.
They're doing it out on the fringes of the cities.
Didn't Wawa just Tesla though?
They do Tesla, but now under the agreement that Tesla has, everything is now going to switch over to a unified.
Oh, good.
Okay, much questions? Thank you very much for your presentation. Now we're going on to the wonderful 2050 long-range transportation plan.
Yes, help yourself to donuts. This is a good donut break.
Okay, good morning. I just wanted to introduce myself.
Can you make it full screen?
Yeah. Thank you. Hi, this is Vishaka Shizam, CEO staff, here to present to you a quick update on the 2050 long-range transportation plan initial steps, co-presented by Elizabeth Watkins. The first section I will be covering is just to give you an idea about the initial steps of creating this plan. As I said, it's a long-range transportation plan covering about 20 to 25 years. It is a planning document that we create for aligning the community's vision for the future. It helps to understand where the effective investment of public funds needs to be done towards transportation improvements countywide. And it helps to accommodate the growth and needs of the country. I just would like to go into some of the data that goes into creating the plan. The first one is a base year map. As you can see here, it's a map showing, it's called a dot density map, which shows the employment and population as of 2020, which will be the base year for the 2050 plan. And you can see the dots on orange shows the employment and the ones on purple shows the population. This is another draft chart that has been provided to us by the Planning Commission based on their estimates for future population growth. This will break down the population by jurisdiction. You can see Plant City, Tampa, Temple Terrace, unincorporated Hillsborough County, and the last bars will show you what the population is in 2020 versus what will be estimated in 2050. Similarly, this chart will help you to understand the employment growth by jurisdiction. Similarly, it's Plant City, Tampa, Temple Terrace, Hillsborough County, and the total. So according to this, this is still a draft number that we will be finalizing based on consultation with jurisdictions and their coordination. This is another screenshot of the data that goes into the plan preparation. This is a screenshot of the Tampa Bay Regional Planning, Tampa Bay Regional Transportation Planning Model. This, as you can see, it shows the highway links throughout the county, and where the traffic is in the, it shows the base year the traffic and the future year traffic based on a mathematical calculation, and it shows where the traffic goes and where the needs are the most important. Moving on to some of the basic steps in creating the plan. As I mentioned in the previous slides, the base year data preparation, which is currently happening, are the base year maps and the data, which what we did in 2021 and 22. In this year, we are currently estimating the growth scenarios for future, along with some of the needs assessment and revenue forecast, which I'll be covering in one of the next presentations. We will be developing the cost feasible scenarios, which will be part of the plan in 2024, leading up to the plan adoption in November of 2024. So moving on to this slide, just to give you a better understanding on some of the elements, the steps in creating the plan. Three major tasks are public engagement, which is really helpful to identify the key issues and priorities. We collect the data on cost, revenues, and which will be leading up to the public hearing in 2024, which will be another big public engagement phase. The cost feasible scenarios are cost estimates and revenue forecasts, which helps to understand where the funding comes from and to match the potential funding sources and their eligible expenditures. These will be presented to the committees and boards for discussion to allocate federal, state, and local funds. The third step is the forecasting system performance. The forecasting is based on two sets of assumptions that has been developed by the TPO. One will be the trend or the existing funding, and the other will be expanded future funding level and looking at all the funding scenarios. This slide is actually to give you an understanding about how public outreach, public engagement played a very important role in 2045 plan part. The public outreach helped to understand the current conditions and evaluate the future needs based on the population and employment growth that we discussed in the earlier slides. There was a survey developed called It's Time Hillsborough. There were two parts of surveys. It helped to determine the goals and to make informed decisions by the committees and the decision makers. All these are a data-driven approach to help at arriving the funding scenarios and to determine where the investments are needed for the future. This is all part of what we call as a performance-based planning approach. This is again diving into the public outreach. We had two outreach events in 2018 and 19 with surveys collected, which had tremendous input, and it helped to develop the plan. All this is done with the help of regional coordination with the local governments and the public transportation planning decision partners. We also coordinated with the Planning Commission, Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance, and the various transportation agencies on the plan adoption. This is one of the slides that will help you to, this is the crux of the LRTP, which will help you to understand what are the costs and what are the needs. As you all are aware, we have 5 funding buckets that we call as investment buckets, being the good repair and resilience, Vision Zero, smart cities, real choices when not driving in major investments for economic growth. For good repair and resilience, the goal is to reduce the vulnerability of roads to extreme weather, and the costs are calculated for road maintenance, transit vehicles, replacement, and improvements for the critical roads in the county based on what's been identified. For Vision Zero and smart cities, we do it collectively because the goals are mostly overlapping. So the goal is to reduce the number of crashes and improve the travel time reliability of the roadway. The cost estimates will be developed as bundles of improvements that can be applied to facility depending on their facility type. For the real choice of when not driving, the goal is to expand mobility options, including bus, transit, walk, bike, etc. And the cost estimates are developed in consultation with the transportation agencies, HART's TDP, the Transportation Disadvantage Plan, and the Green Basin Trails Master Plan. As you all know, the major investments for economic growth are projects that are big budget projects that are of regional significance, including roadway expansion, but not limited to that. It also includes fixed guideway improvements, and it is its own category. The cost estimates are developed for design, right-of-way construction, etc., which will be mostly calculated based on the Tampa Bay Regional Transportation Model results, which I showed you, which helps to identify the congested corridors. And also, I need to add that all these projects will be also evaluated for freight and equity needs. For the freight needs, if they are big budget projects, they will be incorporated under the major investments for economic growth, and the operational projects can be evaluated under the smart cities category. For equity needs, all the projects will be evaluated to make sure they satisfy the equity and would be evaluated for that. With this, I'll move on to Elizabeth.
Thanks, Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. So Vishaka did a really nice job of explaining broad strokes what's long-range plan. But this portion of the presentation will focus specifically on the revenue forecast, which is the key input to the long-range plan. So in this presentation, I'll further explain how the revenue forecast fits in, describe some of the existing funding sources that are available within the county to fund transportation, as well as some currently unlevied sources for future consideration. So one of the key questions we try to answer with a long-range plan is, what can we afford? The plan goes out through 2050, so it's a 25-year planning horizon. We've got lots of needs, but how do we fund those? We take a three-step approach. The first of which is where we are right now, is where we just try to look at all of our data sources, see how much do we have available today, from federal, state, local funding sources, private, if that were to be a reasonable option from some of our, from the jurisdictions or the operators who would be the major conduits for that funding. And the second step is to compare that list of revenue sources with their eligibilities and all those project needs that come through those needs assessments that Vishaka was talking about. And then the final step is when the TPO board will formally allocate revenue to those programs or projects, and that'll happen in November of 2024. So this is a little small, but this is, I think, an important graphic that helps illustrate that core question of what can we afford. So the title says Transportation Financial Scenario 8B, if there was a 1-cent sales tax, what could be funded through 2050? So on the left-hand side, you'll see the column titled Expenditures. Those are all of the projects that were itemized through the long-range plan. And then on the right-hand side is the revenues. So in blue is where we are today. That's our existing funding sources that are available to us to fund transportation. And purple is those new funding sources, if they were to become available over the life of the plan. And this illustrates, because you can see, you know, your funds don't exceed your projects. This is what we could fund if these revenues were available to us. So we'll be going through a similar exercise with this long range plan. I'm going to go through the crisis.
Yeah, today's crisis with all of
yes, yeah, inflation, it has to be in year of expenditure. So we adjust for that. With the project cost, we'll apply an inflation rate, and then with the revenues, we will apply the growth rate. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all of this, but again, we are in the process right now of just documenting how much funding, if there were no additional funding sources available, how much would be available through 2050 with the revenues today. So it'll include estimates of federal and state grants, THEA's revenues, We'll have all that forecasted in the plan. But the local funding sources is probably one of the most important in the plan, because as many as you know, to take advantage of all those grants, you have to have local match to take advantage of those. So one of the key funding sources within the county and our city is the gas tax. So that's what those numbers are. We're planning to use a 1% growth rate based on the FDOT revenue estimating conference. So that's a group of economists who get together, look at the data, look at the growth in the state, and estimate how much fuel tax will be available. We're closely monitoring, the stability of the gas tax as EVs proliferate, and how much that is a reliable data source. But at this point, we're planning to use a modest growth rate based on that direction at DOT revenue conference. Another source of transportation funding, although minimal, is the community investment tax, which will be sunset in 2026. So we will just be forecasting out that little bit of amount. Because some of that does go to transportation. Mobility fees, again, is another key source of local transportation revenue. So we'll be documenting that throughout the forecast. And of course, we are working closely with our partners at Heart and Sunshine Line to document all of those revenues that are used for transit in our community. So here's one slide where I was really hoping to get some feedback. I mean, on all of it, but particularly this, because this is, I think, the most uncertain. So as I showed in the previous slide with that purple bar chart, we're trying to identify what are some possible unlevied sources. We gave this presentation last week to the board, and I think the TPO board, I think Commissioner Cohen put it really nicely, that there really isn't consensus right now on what future potential revenues could go for transportation. So at the staff level, we're taking that direction as just have everything ready for the board to decide what is reasonable. So this exercise of identifying what could be those future funding sources, I think is really important. So some of the things we're considering. One, what if there was an increase in 1 mil to go towards transportation throughout all the jurisdictions? What if there was a 1% sales tax that would be effective no earlier than 2029? What if there was a reauthorization of the CIT and a larger proportion of that went on transportation? What if we use those additional 5 cents of the local option fuel tax that are not currently levied? Special assessments, electric vehicle charging fees. So these are all things that we're kind of considering, trying to do the data analysis. So when we come back to the TPO board and committees later this year in the fall, we'll be ready for any scenarios that I'll suggest. See cushion. So some next steps, staff is working hard on the needs assessments, working on the model, doing public outreach. And again, our target date for adoption is November 2024. So that's all we have for you. And Ms. Shock and I would be happy to take any questions.
Kevin O'Hara.
Hi, this is exciting. I always love seeing new LRTP. In terms of funding sources, one thing that I guess I'd give some feedback on is regarding ad valorem is any way that can be either studied or partitioned off by municipality. I think that, Hillsborough County has had a history with sales tax referendums. And, I think that, the sales tax conversation, depending on who you talk to, is a little bit of a hairy conversation. And I think that, looking at our cities, Temple Terrace, Plant City, City of Tampa, ad valorem is one of the largest revenue sources that they can levy on their own citizens and invest, in projects that are important to them. And I think that is really important. I think the county has done a great job of working together to try and fund this through sources that affect everyone, like a sales tax. But I would encourage, if there's any type of forecasting that can be done on, say, if the city of Tampa were to levy a work plan of a 1 mil increase during a set time period, what could be funded by that, or what priorities that the city of Tampa has already identified, how could those priorities be elevated or fast tracked if they went on their own and essentially move forward with that. Same goes for Temple Terrace and Plant City, and also for Hart. I think Hart still has the ability to leverage a 1 mil increase or a property tax increase in the jurisdictions that participate in the interlocal. So there is a transit component there of what can be funded, through that increase. And, a similar program is done with the PIPES program in the city of Tampa. And I think that, while it was, some could say popular or unpopular, it's a much needed investment. I think that a lot of folks are starting to see that, investment will start to pay many dividends later down the road. So, yeah, I guess that would be my only feedback on funding sources is if you could incorporate local option ad valorem for the municipality specifically, that would be great to see and kind of give all options on the table.
Mr. Hay and Ms. Crescent.
I had probably, it's out of left field, but I know in some other jurisdictions, there's a tax on each parking space that you have. So like a Target, right? They would have to pay a certain amount per each space they have. And then some, either hopefully all or some, I don't know if it's even legal, but could go to transit. I don't know if that's even a possibility here in Florida or, but it may be have dual purpose of, okay, now we're hopefully having development with less parking so people can then use more transit, but then it's kind of interrelated. That's at least how I know.
You have to have transit infrastructure.
Well, but if a tax and then money went to hard to improve service, even if it was just in particular areas where there's transit at a certain level, corridors or things like that, then right, that you're at least, I don't know how much money that would get.
Understand that the e-bike vouchers is being paid for by parking fees. So yes, you
Right,
could
but
designate it.
I'm not talking about,
Oh, yeah.
He means like Publix paying the tax on every parking space.
Right. If you're building a shopping center with a
Yeah.
sea of parking, you're gonna pay more than a mixed-use development or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know if that's legal or not. but-
It's interesting. Yeah, I personally haven't heard of it, but I'll go back and look into it.
Ms. Crescent.
The tourism development. It's an TDC, yeah. It just, I don't know why tourists don't, some of that money that we generated from tourism, I'm not sure why it's not funneled into the roads that they use or the transit service they use, what have you. I think it would be helpful to outline in your possibles what it would take, just kind of high level, because regular people aren't going to know any of those details. And I didn't see anything about development funding.
So mobility fees.
That's the mobility
That's
fee,
kind of
okay.
captured in there. I know Hillsborough County, I think, is updating their mobility fee study. So that's something we're kind of relying on the jurisdictions and letting them take the lead and incorporating that in our forecast. But a great point about what would it take? So like for the additional 5 cents of the local option fuel tax, that's just majority voting with the OCC.
Yeah.
Well, the sales tax, we have to go to referendum. So I think that decision, that's really good feedback. So
Let's go with Ms. Garcia. You wanted to ask a question? You fine? No, Ms. Silva.
I just was surprised to see that the CIT was getting reevaluated because I thought it was already bonded and encumbered for its entire life.
So,
Last slide of the eye.
after 2026. So if it were to be reauthorized.
Okay, you said in the last year left, okay.
So, sorry, that was unclear. So in the existing funding sources, we're incorporating the additional 3 years that we have for CIT. If there's anything that could go to transportation, that will be included. But in the potential funding sources, post 2026.
Okay, you're evaluating, because I was gonna say, I think in your evaluation, you're gonna find it's all dolled up, but okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got you. They might, we'll do our due diligence.
Can anybody have any other questions? At this time, I'm gonna ask, could you put up Ms. Robbins' first 2 slides? And I hate to make you go all the way back. Let's go to, no, I'm sorry, the next one. I'm sorry, the 2 bar graphs.
The population.
There you go. These 2 are what interest me. Now, if you go to the next slide. This always proves my point. The population of the city of Tampa doubles every day between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. For the transportation needs, I'm not taking anything away from any other city or the unincorporated county. I'm not taking anything away. The transportation needs are there. Every road is going to be a funnel into the city of Tampa. That's what needs to be met as far as transportation in the future, I feel. I'm going to leave you now. Again, I thank you all very much for letting me serve with you. I'm going to leave you with a piece of advice that my grandfather gave me. Always, always, always question authority. When you do it with respect. Number two, I'm going to ask you for a favor. My heart belongs to the city of Tampa. If the TPO decides they want to merge into a 3-county MPO, which I am dead set against, please ask that the city of Tampa has equal representation in that tri-county MPO. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
He's the chair.
Yeah. Got my question. So just a few comments for you guys. Thank you first. What you were saying about charging for better transit, but then you have to have the transit so that people forgo their car and their parking. It's a chicken and egg. So no easy answer, but definitely the way to go. As for parking surcharge or whatever we want to call it, many cities do it nationwide. City of Tampa does it. They've talked about opening up certain parking. So maybe like that one parking lot is like, for every time you pay here, it goes to X bus service or the streetcar. So yeah, definitely it's a good type of funding thing.
Parking benefit district, is that what you're?
Yeah,
describing?
like whatever on this building or on this garage, every time you come and you pay for parking, it's going towards this benefit. But then I like the couple cents on every parking spot citywide. That's pretty cool too. And lastly, there is the special assessment. So I understand there is a streetcar special assessment thing, but that's only for commercial and like non-residential. So I don't know if it's worthwhile looking into including the residential. And then maybe not just for streetcar, but maybe for other services. Like South County is a fairly like self-contained community. So like all South County development, like let's say just Roski and Waimama area, for example, that could have like some sort of levy, surtax. I'm afraid of using the wrong word here. So that it goes towards transit in that area, whatever that may look like. It won't be a streetcar, but it could be something that works for that community. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what he was saying.
Oh,
It's like, you're right.
If we're gonna think outside of the box, we might as well go there. I think in some ways we have to get people to realize the word tax doesn't work in Florida. It just doesn't. We're virtually tax-free in a lot of ways. Governments survive on property tax. That's their funding source for all their operations, all these people's salaries, everything else. At the same time, every time we have a ballot, we have more and more constitutional amendments to reduce people's liability on their property taxes. If they're school teachers, if they're veterans, whatever, everybody always votes for them because they want out of tax. The reality with roads, with mobility fees being increased and everything else, which they need to be because it's been 30 or 40 years, which is ridiculous. Those are paid in the beginning of development. Are they paid again for the life of that development? No. Roads are maintenance, period. We have to come up with a system that funds it. Toll roads work because every time you use it, you pay. They are user fees. They are not taxes. We need to change the way that we phrase this to people. You drive on the road, you use it, you pay a user fee. There are plenty of big cities in this entire world that have set up mechanisms that you come into the inner city, you pay to get in. Cost of sprawl. You live in West Chase, you come downtown to work, you're paid $250 to come in the city of Tampa at whatever major road you're coming in on. whether it's some type of transponder system, I mean, the technology's amazing. Put it on every freaking major road. Do it. Just do it. It's a freaking user fee. I'm sorry. There's my soapbox. It's long-term maintenance. Larry knows it. FDOT knows it. Everybody.
Yeah, you saw that bar graph. We don't even pay for what we need
No.
today.
No.
Can I add on to your comments?
I can get heated.
There are other jurisdictions that charge, again, I'm not sure if this is legal in Florida, but other jurisdictions charge an income tax for people that don't live in the city. But then if their job is in the city and they live outside of the jurisdiction, they get an income tax.
Without change, without change at the state level, which is not gonna happen. Local municipalities do not have the ability to tax themselves. Period. So you need to elect better state legislatures if you actually want change. Because we've tried for decades to get local municipal control, local jurisdictional control of taxing. It will not happen until we change the people. It's not gonna happen until we change those people, period.
Tolls, exclamation point.
It's a user fee.
I was gonna ask Kathy, are you aware of, are there any cities in Florida that do the, called the toll, like they do in New York City as you come in?
Oh, the congestion pricing.
Yeah, that's it, congestion pricing. Are there any in Florida?
Yeah. It's a northern thing, it's a London thing, it's a.
New York City does it, so by definition, Florida won't do it.
No. Let's deal with facts. We've got some old research on it because tolls has been also a word that are, left stumbling. So
it's a user fee.
We've had experts come in and talk about, the congestion pricing in the past, I believe. So this is good. This isn't here for brainstorming.
Yes.
Orlando has tolls everywhere.
On the long range planning, it's hard, Cal and I sat here one day and we kept talking about light rail, how we're fixated on light rail. But what do they call it? BRT?
Yeah.
Over in St. Pete, absolutely phenomenal. And we don't seem to be considering that limited stop, raised platform, almost high speed.
It's planned and it's here. We do not have the money to implement it here. And Ellis found special magic money to get theirs off the ground, and we're glad they're successful because we are hopeful that we'll get ours funded. It's not completely wrapped up and signed yet, so.
But to your point, every time somebody mentions a light rail train, I think a little vein bursts behind my eye. Because you don't want to pay for a regular bus on mixed traffic with regular bus stops. Now you're telling me you want to pay for a train that's like.
We don't even want to raise the money to fix the potholes properly or build the sidewalks.
Right. I
mean, that's the reality.
Change from the light rail thought process to the BRT, just because of my personal experience. So what do we make?
It's in the plan. We just, it's all on the plan. We have BRT on Florida, we're almost wrapped up and ready to go. Elizabeth's pushing every day to get it done so we can qualify for grants. Like they were saying, where's the local match going to come from? If we don't have any money in our little chart is so low, we're not doing that. And you won't find light rail all over in our adopted plan either. We only have premium transit listed in there, which can completely be BRT. And we have regional premium transit listed in there, but T-Barta went away. So like,
we need to do a pilot project. We need to convince FDOT to do a pilot project with us that we put up a transponder system. Let's just pick Hillsborough. It's the one major east-west connector that goes through counties, okay? So pick that one, put it at the end, each side, hit it. Everybody pays 10 cents. It's nominal. Just pay 10 cents. You know how many freaking cars and how much money you'd raise just for 10 cents every car? I'm sorry.
I think we need to.
We have one more, but I put it in here as optional. It's another component of our LRTP update, and since I had somebody cancel, I threw it in as an option to see.
Well,
It's your pleasure.
How long do you think you need for your
I
next
can
presentation?
talk in 10 minutes.
Okay.
I say, go for it.
And then you with the questions. I just wanted to add to the previous conversation that I think this was really good, but this is what hopefully we'll be collecting in a public survey.
Yeah, yes, yes. You'll see our little cool graphic where you're gonna go buy and spend, so send it to everyone you know.
Besides that, are you guys going to like Riverfest and every one of these street festivals and collecting data?
Last time we had 10,000 participants, so yes, we were everywhere. Everywhere.
And I answered.
All 3 counties.
Okay, quickly moving on to that one component of one of the needs assessment that we are doing. This is a quick update on the needs assessment for congestion management and crash mitigation, which Lisa felt would be good in this committee. So the purpose and needs of, again, this is Vishaka Shriram and TPO staff for the report. The purpose of the needs assessment is to identify some of the deficiencies in the transportation system. As you're aware, we have 5 LRTP funding projects. Categories, if you want to call it, those are the State of the Good Repair, Vision Zero, Smart Cities, Real Choices, and major investments. So in this needs assessment, we are going to be identifying what are the safety and reliability deficiencies in the transportation system. Those are 2 of the categories which fits under the Smart Cities and Vision Zero. The benefits of the needs assessment is to identify specific levels of performance based on the available revenue and to determine how the network will perform based on these, based on the crashes and the travel time reliability assessment. So for the needs assessment, for the performance measures, there are this serves as a foundation for the TPO's performance measures document also. So the measures of congestion, as you can see here, are reliability index, planning time index, vehicle miles traveled, and vehicle hours traveled. For the freight, it's freight reliability index measured as truck travel time reliability. For the congestion management and air quality, we measure the peak hour excessive delay. And for the safety, we look at the number of fatal, serious injuries, or property damage crashes, in addition to the non-motorized pedestrian and bicycle crashes. Just to give you a quick update, this is a little technical, but this is the background is this was based on a project developed by the federal FHWA, Federal Highway Administration SHART 2 program. It was a grant provided for sketch planning tool called Project C11. This tool is mainly to evaluate the economic impacts of transportation improvement and conducts market analysis, connectivity, and travel time reliability. So moving on to the data selection, the analysis is conducted using the output from the Tampa Bay Regional Transportation Planning Model, which I showed you in the previous presentation. The tool we use is called a C11, which is a post-processor tool because it uses the original C11 tools algorithm and extends it into a separate tool to process the loaded network file. The model output will have volume, travel, time, density, delay, etc., which uses to identify the forecast, the crash rate, the location of the crashes, travel time, reliability, etc. The equations would apply, which give you an estimated of what the future crashes and the travel time will be in the specific links that we analyze. Again, this is going into the methodology, but just wanted to let you know that the model gives you output for poorly performing links. Links are the smaller units of geography that we identify in the model. Those needs to be converted into longer corridors for the purpose of evaluation. So typically we look at anywhere between 1 to 5 miles of length, and the projects are evaluated based on the treatments that can be applied to these corridors, and we break it on the type of facility, being urban freeways, divided arterials, undivided, and then the other local roadways and collector streets. Again, this is to let you know that this is also continuing on the methodology for the when we convert the links into corridors, they are sorted based on the worst performing for crashes and reliability. Then those corridors will be selected for the reliability and safety treatments, and those are identified in the TPO network. There are mainly 4 types of roadways identified, like I told you, and the improvements that there are 2 sets of investments scenarios that we considered for the project development purposes. The low cost scenario, the low cost improvements, which are being the improvements that are currently spent by the jurisdictions, and the high cost will be the ones which we can apply if we use all the available revenue resources. And there's an optimal value, medium level of improvements also. This is just a schematic diagram showing how the model network is evaluated, and the crash data is input to provide two lists of projects, which will be the safety project list and the operational project list. This is something which is important because these are some of the potential safety improvements that we can apply to our roads based on the type of facility, number of lanes, etc. that I explained to you. Some of the low-cost improvements being, and again, these can be applied based on the type of roads. The low-cost improvements are crosswalks and lanes, and some of the lighting measures, while the higher cost treatments include road diet and more bigger projects like complete streets treatment, and they depend on the length of the roadway and the context of the roadway. These are developed based on coordinating with the local governments and based on what they are using and what would be funded. It also looks at the crash modification factor of FDOP. Similarly, these are some of the potential operational improvements that we can evaluate. Some of the operational improvements like ramp metering can be applied to the highways, whereas signalized roadways can use loop detection, signal retiming, and some of these treatments. Again, this is the next steps and some of the plans that are being produced as part of the needs assessment. There are different needs assessment for each individual category, which will be conducted this year and the next. And I can take any questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Questions? Yes. Air quality measurement. When we were talking about expanding 275, kept talking about decrease of cars sitting, and thus that would increase air quality. Some of you now recently moved in the last year to 2 blocks from 275. I can tell you the particulate matter that lands on my front porch on a daily basis is significant. We need to start actually probably measuring that particulate matter, not just saying, oh, if you reduce the number of the amount of time that a car sits, you'll get less particulate matter. As we increase the number of automobiles and vehicles that are putting out particulate matter, that's increasing. My entire front yard is 3 inches of fine dust, not even soil. So what it is actually pollution that is solidified and comes down in the rain, and that's what I have as a front yard. And in those neighborhoods that border 275 and 75, it's going to increase until we get to almost 100% EV, which is not going to be anytime soon. But particularly where we have schools and we have children growing up in these neighborhoods, they're breathing in this particulate matter. And we need to be measuring that as much as just what's the less time delayed that a car sitting there, how much particulate is coming out. And I've never seen any measure, particularly from FDOT, on how much particulate is coming out now. So that measure needs to be added to the air quality, because the air quality is bad sometimes. And I was very surprised when I went to my front yard to find out that it took me 3 inches to get to soil. I don't know how long.
That's another study, and we have air quality measurers out in the community. We're doing a pilot on that. You'll be seeing the results of it. This one was focused on crash and crash mitigation, but you're right, congestion and moving it has some effect on air.
So like I explained in one of the earlier slides, all these are part of our performance measures that we
Yeah,
have.
this is just one. Yeah, Connor came with a different one, safety, a different one, and yeah.
Right.
This is just another one. And I thought you guys might like to see all the different things we talk about in the roadway design go into how we evaluate the projects that get submitted and go into our LRTP. Does it have it? Does it have that? There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. We don't just go, oh, a straight line in a road, it's X. There's a lot.
Questions? I have a quick comment.
Yes.
Thank you, Vishaka. I noticed you put road diet on your slide. Not for me, but I've heard some people think that's a political slur. So consider something like lane repurposing, something like that.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
They don't even like elimination anymore. repurposing.
Seriously?
Yeah, I'll make a note of that, but that was.
Jesus.
Hey, man.
Diet is a four-letter word, I'm just saying. Yeah, do a double. Yeah.
But these are like what I pulled out based on.
Yeah, just,
This is what.
it doesn't come to the audience if you.
Yeah, so here you're good, but in other places, it
Yeah,
might not be well received.
Yeah, I know that too. Thank you so much.
Just a quick question. Will there be any type of partitioning on lists for roads based off of ownership? So FDOT-owned roads, City of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, Hillsborough County, to kind of know like who the owner of the road is. So essentially you're creating a jurisdictional project list in the categories.
So thank you for that question. Actually, we do have the list of jurisdictions as to who owns and maintains the road, but I'm not really sure if we do that classification while, you mean while funding, I mean, while listing the projects?
So like you have a plan on state of good repair. So having a state of good repair plan for the city of Tampa with the roads that are within its jurisdiction that they own versus one with Hillsborough County roads that they own within unincorporated Hillsborough, just to kind of give some more context as to, you know, these are the entities that are going to fund these projects because they're not going to fund projects they don't own or that they have no skin in the game. So
Those will be identified in the final transmission planning.
wonderful, yeah.
Based on the ownership and the system.
Okay, great.
The LRTP, because it is a 20-year thing, it doesn't go into tons of detail. That's what the tip is for each year. So give you the detail, but we have all that. And so that's why we can put little fun facts. And again, in a survey that was people, we can't say this road, but we can say, which we did last time.
The reason why I
The
bring it,
resurfacing timeframe for the city of Tampa is one every 75 years. What is good best practices is one that's every 17, which the Department of Transportation adheres to. In the county, it's one every, and it was less than 75, but not 17. So we have that general data that we summarize, but yeah, when we go into the little database, we know how many roads in Hillsborough County and how many roads in city of Tampa are in the different categories.
no, that's fair. I think that the only feedback I have is with any LRTP, I think that sometimes, like, yes, it's a long-term planning document, and that's its intended purpose, so of course it's going to be vague. But I think there's a little bit of head loss in the clouds when you're thinking about, you know, revenue sources and you're thinking about these abstract funding platforms. And I think that you've seen people who don't necessarily want to have a revenue increase use that as a way to say that the revenue increase is based on vague data. And it's based on, so I think that as much detail, and also for, you know, to my comments earlier on, you know, having partitioned off funding sources specifically on ad valorem, now knowing more about, you know, if Temple Terrace owns X amount of roads, these are the projects that are identified on those roads. And these are the funding sources that are at the availability of Temple Terrace, whether that's a combination of mobility fees, gas tax, ad valorem, or working together with the county on a, you know, countywide sales tax where they get a cut of that funding. As much of that can be, I think, put into detail, I think helps decision makers as much as it helps the general.
Yeah, it'll be coming here through here for you guys' feedback, because like last time we did Trend, which was what we have, the existing not very far money, and then Trend Plus, which in that case, it was this one set sales tax, so we're like this many miles of complete street, this many miles of complete street, this many lives saved on those complete streets, this many lives lost, you know, whatever and stuff. So we try to do, and then we have a little project page for each one, so you can click on here and see what you're going to get. You know, they're all color coded in Temple Terrace and what you're not and stuff. But it's a balance of too much and too little. So you
I
guys,
would also like to add that these are only like these are only like list of projects that we identify. These are not necessarily prescribed for a particular road. So these are like, what if it's a 4-lane arterial, then you can do these kind of treatments based on the improvements and the forecasted traffic crashes that will be reduced. So it's just like a list what you can choose from, and this will be, each individual jurisdiction will go further, and like what Lisa said, they will have their own individual plans, so they can choose from there.
Just real quick, I know this isn't like the whole list
No.
of safety improvements, but no right on red or restricted right on red. I bring that up a lot. I don't know why we don't do that. It seems like a super easy and cheap way to save lives. You know, and there's all kinds of, you know, bicycle boulevards and neighborhood greenways and just That doesn't have to be expensive.
Yeah, no, I'll take a list.
Landscaping, you know, I don't know.
She's on the big picture.
Yeah.
The team, and a lot of that was in the health impacts of complete streets, you know. And the LRTP, the whole everything, or the 25, so we're starting here, and then we refine. That's why it's a 2-year process, and that's why you saw the timeline that you're gonna get this, and then you're gonna get that. So sometimes we can skip this thing, bring it to you, because we just wait until we have the answers. But I had time today, so I thought I'd bring some of the sausage making to you today.
Any other
That's
questions?
great and good, yeah. Now keep it coming, because we'll leave it on the final that goes out to the public.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, old business, new business, do you have anything real
Well,
quick?
One of our own members is going to bring some very exciting topics next month, so definitely show up. Maybe at the TPO meeting in early May, we'll have a new chair selected. They'll be prepared and ready to chair the meeting. So David Haywood, but we definitely are meeting even whether we've got a designated new chair next month. So. Eat your donuts.
I was going to say May is National Bike Month. May 3rd is National Bike to School Day. Sidewalk Stoppers has lots of projects going on for this all over the county. If you have any interest in getting involved, I can always find ways to put you to work.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of, I forgot.
Sorry.
Just as a friendly reminder, we do have a survey out right now for the future growth of unincorporated Hillsborough County. You can find that survey on our Plan Hillsborough website.
And in your addendum.
And in your addendum, please take it. Help us learn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's the land use version of the LRTP, so yeah, just equally important.
Lisa?
Yes, okay. I forgot. Oh, as part of our implementing the school safety study, East Tampa CRA approached us about doing a painted crosswalk to classroom at Cayuga and 34th. So on May 13th, they're having their event to paint it. Vision Zero funding from the TPO is buying the supplies, and City of Tampa's artist is assisting them, and they're paying for the rest. So, and then
And we'll be there providing activities for the community.
I sent sidewalk stoppers out, so, because they were like a little lost on how to manage, and the artist was like, you gotta manage the kids, you know, and I'm like, okay, no. So thank you. And then sidewalk stoppers approached us and said, hey, can we use the little graphics in the back of your school transportation study for Riverview, et cetera? And I'm like, well, heck, yes. So we printed up, a demo right here. So they're available for anyone that wants to use them. And we also have a living library of Vision Zero signs. So
While she's grabbing those, we're doing a painted intersection on the east side of the Cass Street Bridge on Friday morning. If anybody wants to come help paint, you're welcome to. It's also going to be Riverwalk wayfinding, because that's when it gets a little wonky and has to go over the road. So we're going to make it pretty and functional.
say it's really fast. Sadly, you saw these in the PowerPoint. We have these and the stakes. Double-sided. They're posted at Alonzo High School right now. Hopefully slowing and making traffic aware. They're in the school zone. Oh, I brought the morbid ones, but we have really good messaging ones too. And there are lots of them. You can do it for sign waving for certain special times and locations, and or as a permanent thing. I really like the downtown partnership borrowed them for the K Street curb extension. We lined the whole corridor, kind of make cars aware like, oh, hey, it's getting painted. Maybe I should slow down and not kill people and stuff. So please use them, abuse them, take them.
Thank you. One last thing. I just noticed the next LRC is after the fact, so I should say it now. We are deploying our service changes mid-May, May 14th. So stay tuned on social media for details. We've been talking about this for a while, but
yeah,
it's coming. It's happening.
It's for real.
Just
and the train day is that Saturday, May at the Union Station.
We talked about this the day before. It's train day.
Yeah, the 13th. Yeah.
All right.
Go support multi-transit.
I guess that's it, right?
And everyone should contribute to Karen's Women's Build for Habitat for Humanity.
If you'd like to contribute.
I gotta stop the PowerPoint.
All
I'll
right.
be soliciting.
Thanks, Ken.
We're slightly over, so I guess. do we have a-
Bye. Use that gavel. Use that gavel.
How much you're going to be? Well, next month.
Kathy, you're good. You're good.